Hotep senu hena senut et aren ishakandugu kemet. I will read from the Wisdom of Ptah-hotep, Maxim 43, Epilogue 6, on the just word. Never say now this, now that, cheating a word of its meaning. Do not put one word in place of another. Be coherent and take note of the words of one who understands reality. Listen. If you want to endure in the sayings of those who really listen, do not speak until you have become a true wordsmith. If you speak well, all your undertakings and your way of life will fall into their rightful position. And I will follow with Maxim 44, which is Epilogue 7, on the just word continued. Think deeply, control your words, and you will be recognized among the dignitaries. In the presence of the Master, let your testimony be exact and complete. Behave so that he can say, "That is a good son," and so that those listening can say, "How lucky is the man for whom he was born." When you speak, let your thought show through in high-minded, carefully considered pronouncements, so that the dignitaries listening will say, "How excellently he expresses himself." I hesitated about sharing this couple of maxims. I don't want people to think that I'm encouraging anyone to speak like Shakespeare. But it's important to know that the Chati or the Vizier Ptah-hotep, who was the equivalent of a prime minister 4,000 years ago, 2000 BC, and who reached the age of 110 years old, it's interesting that he deemed it important and useful to give this advice about the proper way of speaking, or let's say the necessity of speaking correctly. So, young brothers and sisters, sometimes we grow up in some areas or some environment where certain cultures are prevalent, and you might feel uncomfortable if you don't speak like most people in your neck of the wood. But eventually you have to grow and you have to mature, and you don't have to buckle under the peer pressure. You don't have to be a groupie. You don't have to blindly follow people. You have to try to do what's good for you and your family. And I've said many times, if you don't think right, you will not act right. Now, if you do think right, if you do act right, then most likely it will show in the way you address people, in the way you speak in general. So I will leave it there because I don't want to be too long. But I did not grow up in the suburbs. Majority of the people that I know do not really speak the same way I do. But I guess my luck, or the advantage that I had, is that there were at least a couple of men that were like big brothers to me, and they were like 10 years older than me. And it was an influence on me. It was an inspiration. And if it wasn't for that, I guess I would have been thinking differently. Now, those two men are people that I used to mingle with on a regular basis. But besides those two, I used to hang with people who were older than me. And ultimately, it's one of the reasons why I ended up being more mature than most people my age. So young people, every now and then, now if you're a brother, every now and then, you might as well, try to have some conversation with people who are older than you. And if you are a young lady, you might benefit from having conversation with a mature woman. Unfortunately, young ladies, there's this saying, and I think it applies more. I wonder if it applies more with female. But the saying goes like this: misery loves company. You might have heard it. Sometimes some girls, some ladies will not necessarily give you the best advice. Not so much because they don't have your best interest at heart, but they might not want you to do so well. They might want you to make the same mistakes that they've made. But usually, a mature woman will put you up on game. And will tell you, sis, I went that road. That's not the way to go. If I was you, I'll go that route. And then it's up to you to decide. But you would have heard that good advice. And if you ultimately realize that you made the wrong decision, then at least you will know, well, I was given good advice. I didn't listen to that one. That's a learning lesson. But if you never had that good advice and you make the mistake, you might not even necessarily realize that you did not make the proper choice. And you might feel like, well, what went wrong? It must have been because of this or that. And you might end up blaming other people when really it was ultimately your fault. But like I said, I don't want this to be too long. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to this ancient wisdom. If you have not yet seen the video entitled Kemet and Maat, then by all means, take the time to watch it. It's less than an hour long. Stay safe, stay healthy. And if I am allowed to, by the Necharu, I will holler back at you, Hotep.